Welcome to Kristine Art watercolor painting channel. Today we're going to paint tulip, but not a simple tulip, a tulip with an interesting details across the outer edge lines. This tulip is called Mercure tulip. From the first look it has two colors, red and yellow, but if you look closer there are much more color tones. And it has a beautiful fringed edge which will require careful brushwork. I will show you the process. Let's paint it together. And first we need to transfer line drawing. I have a line drawing on transparent paper, but it can also be a printout. Applying graphite to the other side, placing back to original paper, checking if composition is in the center. And now with a slightly harder pencil, I'm going over outlines of the tulip. All details are important, even the smallest one. What you see in the reference, transfer to your line drawing. All lines are transferred. Removing outline drawing away, and that's how it looks. Now with a smaller, much thinner pencil, I'm going over the outlines again with a very light touch. I also have my reference right beside me and I'm checking if I'm transferring correctly. You don't just blindly transfer from the outline, you also need to follow reference. Maybe you will see some details differently. Maybe there are some extra details that you want to include that I maybe left out. Always think as you go. Don't just blindly follow step by steps. You can also check, you can also think what you are doing and where you are going. Everything is outlined with elastic eraser, removing the excess amount of graphite off the paper. Especially we need to, as much as possible, remove graphite where we have this fringed edge, because there will be yellow pigment which is super transparent, and all graphite marks can be visible through many layers of yellow pigment. Carefully and very lightly I'm erasing those fringed edges, but don't do it very roughly. Don't push too hard, you can damage paper surface by doing that. And I'm using wider brush to remove erasing dust from the paper. Also, lighter side of the stem is very light, and I'm very lightly erasing graphite line, so only I can see it. It's super light. We need watercolors, mixing palette, clean water, brushes, a little piece of paper where we can make watercolor mixes, lemon yellow, Indian yellow, Alizarin Crimson, permanent rose, manganese violet, Perylene Violet, Sap Green, Ultramarine Blue. Painting out color mixes that we pre-mixed, I will also write down the recipes I use, so while I'm painting I know which pigments I were using. And when you run out of watercolor mixes, don't get stressed. You can mix again, you know which pigments you were using, and your painting will only benefit if that watercolor mix will slightly differ from the previous one. That doesn't matter, it really is multicolored subject. And don't forget to change water after mixing watercolors. Well, line drawing is done, watercolors are pre-mixed, we are ready to start painting. And before start, a little advice. Don't try to make this painting in one sitting. Realistic painting requires careful observation and patience. During the painting of careful concentration, you can get tired. And then there comes a feeling of rushing things. That's a tricky part. Better to pause, take a break, go for a walk, have a cup of tea, come back other day. Then you will be more relaxed and ready to continue painting slowly and accurately till the finishing touches. All is ready. And we will start with first petal on the right. I have my paper towel in left hand and brushes in right hand. Applying with round synthetic brush water layer to the whole area of the petal. Water is just enough for watercolors to be moved. There are no puddles, as you can see, and even paper when lifted up, water can't get off the paper. Taking first watercolor mix, which is Alizarin Crimson, Permanent Rose, and a little touch of Perylene Violet. I have my reference and I see where are a little bit darker colors and more yellowish colors on this particular petal. I'm taking the first mix, which is Alizarin Crimson and Indian Yellow, and applying to the upper part, right under yellow edge area. First layer is very transparent. Be very careful with Perylene Violet mix and Alizarin Crimson. Perylene Violet is a very strong pigment. It should be treated super lightly in order to have it beautifully in your painting. Otherwise, you can get too dark too fast with Perylene. This little corner on the right is in the shadow, and the petal on the right is casting shadow on this petal. But we are building darkness, saturation gradually, transparently, with layers, not with intensity of watercolors or using some completely different pigment to making some watercolors darker. I'm using the same watercolors, the same amount, only more layers. To have this tulip so dark and saturated, we will be having many layers of watercolors. It's not about few layers. Leaving this lighter area, if we take a closer look at the reference, you will notice that on the inner part of this petal there is beautiful violet spot, and I want to leave now this area light. After, I will apply manganese violet to that area, but now I'm leaving it just light. Flower head is dry and we can continue with applying layers. Now with a finer tip brush is the work of fine brush strokes. We can see from the reference, and most all of the tulips have very interesting fine line texture on the petals. That's what we are achieving with fine brush strokes. Always compare reference on the screen with your painting. You can even, when you have painted some while, photo your painting and on the screen place it together with the reference. You will notice which areas you need to make darker or leave light as it is and don't touch it anymore, where you need more contrast. Now I'm going to the middle petal, where is the beautiful contrast area, and with finer brush strokes applying watercolors. Full tutorial is available on my Patreon channel, from starting brush strokes to finishing touches. Full tutorial is a little bit over an hour in real time and with explanation of the painting process. If you want to level up your watercolor painting skills and enjoy the process, consider subscribing to my Patreon learning space. Tutorials are available to all painting levels. Let's have a closer look of my fine brush strokes from the side and a closer view, so you see how my hand is moving, which part of the brush is touching the surface in order to make those fine brush strokes. As I apply watercolors to the brush, I remove some amount on the paper towel, and while I'm removing, I'm slightly rolling my brush against the paper towel to make this tip super fine and straight. Then I go and make those fine. While you're watching this video, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you find it helpful, consider subscribing to my channel. New videos and tutorials coming out every week. As I'm reaching closer finishing part of this beautiful tulip painting, I start to more compare my reference to my painting. And the best way to compare is take a picture of your painting and put it side by side with the reference. As I placed, I noticed that I'm still missing some shadow, more contrast in the inner petal and more shadow on the right side petal. Adding more contrast to the shadow area, adding last and final touches to this painting. I will not have so strong shadow as it is in the reference. I want to make it a little bit calmer than it looks in the reference. Again, this is my painting and my choice. You can go further with your painting. You can even stop earlier than I am right now. This is your painting, your process, and your practice. But I always encourage, paint extra 20 to 30 minutes after this tutorial is finished. So you push yourself a little bit further, test your limits, but take breaks during the painting process. I'm also taking breaks. It's not like I picked up the brush as it looks in this tutorial and paint it all the way till the end. No, I make pauses, I go to drink, I go for a walk, maybe even come back other day and then finish. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Hope you learned something new and see you in my next tutorials. Bye bye.